Jesus, he's taking forever. Ah, screw it. They've waited long enough. I'll just do it myself. Hey everyone, how's it going?
Ing. Finally made it. I hope everybody had a fantastic 4th. The best part about this time is kicking it with your loved ones, whether it's friends or family. But what I like to do with my friends on the 4th of July is...
Ruins? It's January.
Oh, you're fucking with me. Did you already do the review?
No, where the fuck have you been? I pushed it back.
So you're telling me I've been gone for several months now? For real?
Geez, Ruins, where the hell have you been?
Well, as I was getting my notes for the review, I was actually abducted by aliens.
Oh, so what they do? Probe you, scan your brain, duct tape a hamster to your head?
No, actually, they locked me in a little black box and forced me to slowly move Pokemon figures around.
Oh shit, that must have been tough.
I mean, they did feed me, kept me hydrated and all. They just demanded that these Pokemon figures get moved around. Said it was part of their master plan. Anyway, I'm pretty sure my home is being monitored as several parties are searching for my ass. Can I crash on your couch for a bit?
Yeah, sure. And before we begin, we do want to acknowledge that, yes, we are aware of what's been going on regarding behind the scenes of Rick and Morty and one of the co-creators, Justin Roiland. We want to make it very clear here that we are separating the art from the artist in this case. Hell, especially since he didn't write this thing or have any involvement whatsoever. Seriously, go fuck that guy.
And while we're at it, fuck Wizards of the Coast for ruining their best game one poorly thought out line at a time. Seriously, that OGL could bite me.
Yep, man. This has been a really messed up year. But yeah, let's get started. Warning, spoilers.
All right, Ruins of Biz episode. Ruins of Biz 1,000 years.
Ah, jeez. We open on Morty on the school bus, overhearing a so-called bloodbath, and is kind of put off.
Look, I know this is an alternate timeline, but come on, dude, you're a Morty. You've had to seen weirder stuff than this.
Turns out the kids are just talking about D&D, and Morty, like whenever Ruins and Spyro talk, is completely lost and begins to do some research.
Fuck you.
Gee, why does this sound familiar?
Much obliged, fucker.
We then see a conversation of a girl recounting her adventures to a group of friends. I gotta say though, this is the part of the comic that I like the least. Like, yeah, I get it. This conversation feels like actual ones I've had with my friends about adventures I've been on, but this goes on for an extended period of time. And while that's happening, you can see that the school has been completely consumed by D&D culture. There are posters hanging around, everyone you see is talking about it, and it feels less like a good friend telling you of their adventures, and more like that annoying guy who won't stop recommending Critical Role to you.
Ugh, I know how that feels. As Murray learns what the fuck D&D is, he learns the greatest truth in life. Something that changes how he sees the world, and that is, gamers get laid.
That is not true. I've been playing D&D for 5 years, and I've only gotten laid 4 times because of it.
So you're saying it does work?
I'm saying that isn't why you play the game.
Anyway, Morty heads down to the hobby shop and meets a generic manic pixie dream girl selling Hork hands. Ah, Hork, everyone's favorite revenger. Driven by his boner, Morty begins to learn everything he needs to know about D&D, as he is a D&D virgin, as the girl puts it.
I guess we know who the bard of the group is. No wonder why people think this game is sexual.
Anyway, Morty realizes that the game is more convoluted than the Scarlet Witch's family tree and goes to talk to his grandpa Rick.
You know, this game is not that complicated. I mean, it can be overwhelming to newbies, but no one is expecting you to memorize the core rulebook by your first session. To any newbies out there wanting to give this game a shot, but has been put off by the rules, my advice is just to jump in blind and figure it out as you go. A good table will help you along, and eventually you'll get the hang of it. It's not that hard when you get into the thick of it, unless you're playing 4th edition.
What happens when you play 4th edition?
You ever fought goblins for 8 hours?
That sounds horrible.
It was. It was.
Rick at first seems to be like his average self, ripping on Morty, and is ready to give him an awkward talk that no amount of therapy sessions will make okay. You know, unless you turn yourself into a pickle, but as soon as Morty mentions D&D, Rick actually acts like a proud grandpa, because he bought something with money from an honest god store. That, and he's a D&D fan.
You know, I've heard people say this is out of character for him, but if anyone's the original nerd, it's Rick. I really like that they added the detail that the D&D he's into is from the Gygax days. days. You know, where it was originally a bunch of sweaty old men putting characters they made up through death traps.
It takes an entire day, which is a record time for D&D players.
But we never see how long it took for them to unlock an open door.
We have if they're just opening
Is it unlocked? Is it unlocked?
You're gonna have to try and see if it's unlocked.
I roll for jiggle.
I don't. You don't have to. You don't need to roll. The door is unlocked. You don't need to roll. The door is unlocked. You easily swing it open.
It has been unlocked this whole time.
Yes. I was waiting for someone to try the door. I was waiting.
Yeah.
To the pain of every DM.
Yeah.
Hey, is the door locked? No, more
Typical.
likely we should shove a rat into a hole.
Alright, so...
So Rick then takes Mori to Blitz and Chits and hacks the Roy machine and turns it into the ultimate D&D session where Rick and Morty are in their own virtual kingdom as Wizard Rick and Paladin Morty.
Side note, there's so many references to moments in the show that it feels like the writer of the comic misunderstood the point. Like, in the background of one scene, Morty is apparently going to a human music concert.
I guess that means they're in a simulation?
I guess, but they're literally about to hop into another simulation, which means...
You're inside a simulation of a simulation inside another giant simulation.
And here, Rick says wubba lubba dub dub.
Well, they gotta do it for the fans.
Play the clip.
Do we gotta...
Play it!
They want you to say wubba lubba dub dub at the end, but screw that, right? Yeah, we're not whores.
Rick and Morty have their fun, killing zombies, but all goes to shit when Morty stabs Rick and kills him, which wouldn't be too bad, but then the manager comes in and unplugs the game, which kills Rick and Morty immediately. Great, now Rick has to do a side quest and tell everyone they're his grandson.
It isn't good for business to kill your clients, so they get some demonic forces to bring them back, like they did with me last time I had Taco Bell.
I come when I am summoned, and thus my blood debt is fulfilled.
Gary, give these vouchers to our special focus group participants.
Thank you, Sean, for that creepy cameo.
Thus my blood debt is fulfilled, you bastards.
Rick and Morty are returned home and revived, and just as that happens, Beth tells Rick to immediately clean up all the crap in the garage that Rick left when he was teaching Morty D&D.
It's funny, because this is cleaner than Rick's garage usually is. Maybe that's why we have Garbage Goober.
Beth and Summer overhearing and wanting in, Rick and Morty now have a party, and after teaching them the how-tos of D&D, and Rick making his own simulator with blackjack and hookers,
the next section is the crew fighting through an endless dungeon, which starts out fun, but quickly gets boring for the family.
and we find out that Rick is a bit of a power gamer. No surprise there.
Bit off topic, but it is something I feel like I should mention. Power gamers get a bit of a bad rap, and for the most part I get it, but I also feel like it's a little undeserved. The archetypical person you see when somebody describes a power gamer is the big sweaty nerd, killing the vibe for everyone at the table with his bullshit. However, it's actually just another way of enjoying the game. I myself like to throw together crazy builds and then put them into campaigns, and what I love about 5e is that the system meets you halfway with that. There's a lot of fun combinations that you can do. Playing the game like an actual game and focusing on your build is nothing inherently wrong. You just have to make sure your table is okay with it.
Okay, dude, what's your point?
Oh, that the family clearly wasn't. They're clearly more in it for the story, which is also valid.
Anyway, here's Jerry with the George Foreman grill, accidentally turning off the game, which of course pisses off Rick, and it actually doesn't help that Jerry reveals that he himself is a D&D fan, and a pretty knowledgeable one at that.
Turns out he's been playing 5e for a while and is actually a huge help to the rest of the family when they start building their characters.
Rick, not wanting to feel one up by Jerry, creates a 5th edition version of the simulation,
but is immediately interrupted by an old friend.
Essentially, this is the dungeon master of this game and takes the form of several popular DMs, like the OG dungeon master from the original game and cartoon series.
Man, that show got fucked over. Still probably going to be better than the movie.
Along with, of course, Matt Mercer from Critical Role. Rick, of course, immediately doesn't trust the Omnipotent Shapeshifter despite the fact that he technically created them. But anyway, the DM helps the family get their character set up.
Jerry becomes Keir Braven, a wizard half-elf who is smart, brave, and has zero doubt in himself. Beth becomes Leanne Amaranthia, a cleric wood elf who is abandoned and vows not to abandon others. Summer became Ari Strongbow, a ranger half-elf who does not forgive, does not forget, and Morty becomes Keth Silversun, a half-orc who loves the ladies but has trouble trusting in people, even his allies.
And Rick became a gnome bard named G. Willikers Pettabutt, and hates it because it turns out that Rick hates bards.
More like he hates what the bard class became. In his words, he was a bard before it was cool, and isn't that the most bard thing to say?
And Rick can't just blast him and go home because the DM literally exercised the science out of him and hacks his portal gun. How does that even work, by the way?
Oh, Biz, you have so much to learn about D&D. The DM can do anything.
That's bullshit.
You don't go against the DM, Biz. Bad things can happen if you do.
Oh, jeez, how powerful is the DM?
They don't have stats, Biz. They don't have stats.
Okay. Anyway, the DM says they can't leave until, like, they fulfill the quest, which apparently involves this couple and this band of orcs, and after some orc slaying, the characters bond, and all the random banter, which most D&D players have, which can be entertaining if it's in a podcast form. Tell me I'm wrong!
Dude, that's just D&D. No one is arguing here.
Whatever. And the day is saved, right? Made for D&D, but this is Rick and Morty, bitch. You know there's gonna be a fucking twist.
And there is. What, you thought the orcs were evil? You racist. Yeah, it just turns out they're innocent and our heroes just slaughtered a village, which, I mean, hey, it's these guys, so it's nothing new for them.
And the couple they were helping were using them to get a magic shard and one of the orc babies.
D&D tip number 1. Always check your questers.
Really? I thought it was always be afraid of doors. So after a long-ass apology, they once again go on the quest, and we once again have character development and more fun banter.
What I really love about this comic is that they pull from the characters' backstory. Not just the Rick and Morty cast, but their D&D characters. It makes the setting feel alive, you know?
Especially Beth, well, her character Leanne, who vowed to never leave a child abandoned, and Morty, whose character just goes full broody loner as he tries to get info on the kidnapper's location.
Man goes full rogue, like Corner in the Tavern level rogue.
Rick tries to tell Morty to calm down, but Morty's gone bye-bye and tells him to pretty much fuck off.
This is pretty much normal for most people who play tabletops. We get really into this.
That sounds like a nightmare. Anyway, after dealing with a slime monster, tight ropes, dragons, and interrogating like they're the goddamn Batman, they finally found the kidnappers, but Jerry S. Keir suggests that they take some time to rest, which is totally not to prolong the game.
Truly a good sign that the game is bringing the family together, because that's what D&D is. What it could be, what it should be. Being with the people you care about and bonding in a way that you can't do elsewhere, that's the truth.
Oh, get off the cross, we need the wood. Anyway, this is dragging on. They find the kidnappers, cool magic fight, they win, but Summer dies, they get medals, they go home, and for a second we think Summer really is dead, but she shows up, and the family goes on their separate ways, except for Rick and Summer, who play a regular D&D game, and we get a teaser for the sequel.
And we'll see you on that one in like a year and a half.
So, as you can guess, I had a lot of fun reading this story. It's a good introduction to D&D, or Rick and Morty, to both fans. Maybe more D&D than Rick and Morty, but that's just my opinion.
There's definitely a bit of a slog getting into the story, but once it all gets going, I was surprised at how strong the narrative actually was. The characters here are solid in ways that I haven't seen from the show. Jerry and Beth get a lot of time to shine, and it really shows the audience the reason the two fell in love. I actually think it does a better job showing that than the show did.
This was a very interesting crossover, since unlike Green Lantern, Planet of the Apes, or Django Zorro, it's not Rick and Morty encountering characters from D&D like the enemies like Vecno or Stride, or any creature that got a name drop like in Stranger Things, like all the fucking time. Point is, the crossover is a setting. But the writer, Patrick Rothfuss, and Jim Zub did their damnedest to make this D&D campaign feel like its own character through the Smith family's characters and the people they meet on the mission. Now finally, let's move on to characters. But it's still Rick motherfucking Sanchez. He's a drinker, he's a pessimist, and like Jeff Bezos, will kill the joy of those who deny him or don't follow his way of life.
Rick, as we mentioned before, represents the power player, focusing on the power fantasy element of it all. He just wants to build and destroy like a pickle to a rat, and doesn't really care about the feelings of his fellow players. And that's the problem. Wanting a power fantasy isn't totally bad, but you need to talk to your fellow players.
It's all about the fun in the end.
Exactly.
This is very much inspired by the Season 3 Rick. as he slowly loses control of the situation. He's forced to be in a class he doesn't like, the family doesn't listen to him the whole time, and he's playing a game that isn't usually his style, which sucks, but it's his own fault.
Everyone got to be who they wanted to be, but Rick refuses it. He denies the joy of playing with his family, something he clearly wanted, but just because he wasn't the DM and he couldn't tell the family what to do.
This also hits hard even in the current season of Rick and Morty, as we see Rick at first look like he's gonna get out of his usual funk and have fun with his family, only for him to have an asshole relapse and ruin it. And the saddest part is, no one else is affected by this. The only one who's suffering from this is himself. Next, we got Morty Smith, Rick's grandson, partner, whipping boy, but in this story, a badass half-orc. Morty himself is pretty simple, as he starts off doing what Morty does, all the way down to his motivation for trying to impress some random girl that he met in a hobby shop. Tess, on the other hand, is a chance to cut loose and be whoever he wants to be, all without purging someone or dating a psycho who murders minors. He even gets to tell Rick off with zero consequences. You really root for Morty since until the recent seasons, Morty doesn't feel heard.
As Kath, he gets to speak out, suggest, and criticize things that normally would lead to an eye roll and an insult. It's bittersweet though, since Kath is still meant to be a different person and not Morty himself, so Morty isn't totally free just yet.
This is Jerry getting to be who he wants to be. Jerry was meant to be the stereotypical sitcom dad, but as Rick took more control of the family, Jerry became more and more of a joke. We all kind of grew to love, and kind of pity.
Jerry gets to give advice and they take it. No jokes. Yeah, Rick mocks him, but Jerry is honestly happy to be comfortable in this role as both a father and a player. It's not like the recent season where he gets wins, but it's either muddied as a joke or it blows up in his face. It's just Jerry getting to be the best self. Jerry got into D&D when he was more laxed, when it was more focusing on having fun, while Rick got into it at a time when it was focusing more on player skill. The best example is when he's explaining to the rules of the family. I know a lot of people is saying that Jerry is at the top of his game in season 6, but no, this is Jerry at his finest. There's not much to say about Beth and Summer, but it is nice to see Beth actually show off how good of a mom she is instead of focusing on how she's a future Rick and Niall. It's also nice to see her and Jerry being romantic to each other. You really get to see why these two would be together.
Yeah, definitely no Citadel interference there. Beth and Jerry legit have chemistry.
Summer is just funny.
The art was done by Troy Little, and I gotta say, the man is a master at Roland's art style. The character designs for all of Rick and Morty are right at home with the show, but he really shines when he starts to combine the styles of the art of the show and the art based on the classic D&D.
Honestly, don't have much to say on the art. It's good. It feels like Rick and Morty, and there's great action.
All around, this is a fun crossover. We get to see Rick and Morty dive into a setting that we don't see them dive into that much, and we get to see sides of characters that wouldn't really get to shine until much later in the show. So you could consider this a sneak peek.
Overall, I really like this comic. It does bombard you with a lot of D&D jokes and references, but it eases up on it fairly soon. And it's just all around a fun Rick and Morty story. And though they could have easily just had it be a parody of D&D, it's nice to see that they got the okay from the higher-ups, so that it's less of a parody and more of an honest-to-God crossover and tribute with love and care.
So yeah, this is a book that we highly recommend. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and thanks Runes for joining me for this video, even if it took you 7 months.
And for all you comic fans out there, Spyro VA and I published our own comic. It's fully voiced and dubbed on his channel. It's called Sky and Chikaro. Go check it out.
Catch you all next time.
Speaking of comics, I'm working with a few friends of mine on another original comic called Rabbit Saviors. It's an indie magical girl project. I'm also on the Offscript podcast with Hayden of Everything if you want to check that out. On top of that...
Shadowjackers come cocoon. Where can't they find you?
Well, for 7 months, here.
By the spiky tits of the T-Rex. Where can't they find you? By the wizard's porn stash. Where can't they find you? By Jerry Smith's imaginary vagina. Where can't they find you? By the slut dragon soul orgy. Where can't they find you? By Tagman's bloody fist. Where can't they find you? By Tagman's bloody fist. Where can't they find you? Seriously, where can't they find you? This is a whole tag. I know it's ridiculous, but fuck it. You know what? Fuck it. You know, it's a tag, you piece of shit. Just improving. I'm not good with improv, but fuck it. This is Tagman. Tagman, yeah!